I'm Amy Chapman. Nice to meet you. I was the Associate Executive Director at Cedarfield before I was promoted and moved about 4 miles downtown to the Hermitage, or Hermitage Richmond as it's known now. Worked with some of you in this room on this program called Pathways to Wellness, which started back in 2014. When Katrin reached out to me, I guess it was about 6 months ago, and said, hey, I heard you folks did a presentation for Leading Age. Would you mind bringing that to Cedarfield so we could learn a little bit more about what you presented? I didn't have to think 2 seconds about it. Because as my husband says, I have 4 things that I like to talk about. My children, my dogs, my New York Yankees, and Pathways to Wellness. So it was a no-brainer for me. So thank you for having me. So the funny thing is that Leading Age, which is our state-run organization, trade organization for nonprofit continuing care retirement communities, has every year a conference, and it's held in different parts of the state. I'd say in my last 30 years of being a long-term care professional, either me personally, I personally, or a group that I've worked with have asked to be considered to do presentations for Leading Age at least 10 times. And for some reason, this was our year. Our architect, and many of you might have met him, Curtis Jenkins, put together a proposal that was approved almost immediately. And fortunately for us and for me, it was about wellness and design and wellness and how it works in a community. So he reached out to me, I guess about 2 months before June when the original conference took place, and said, hey, could you be part of our team? And I said, absolutely. He said, I want the focus to be on building. So you'll kind of be the side gig to our presentation. And I said, that's perfectly fine. I'm happy to be there. And the day of the conference, I got a call from Curtis, and he said, guess what? And I said, what? He said, I have COVID. I'm not going to be there. So I took a deep breath, and I said, okay, what's plan B? And he said, it's okay. Ty is the principal in our architecture firm, and he's been involved in this project from the beginning. He's going to take my place. So no need to worry. And I said, okay, that's great. I know Ty. We've worked together before. I'm not worried at all. About an hour before the presentation, I got a text message from Ty, and guess what? He had COVID too. So I took a deep breath, and I said, it's okay, we're going to get through this. So about 15 minutes before showtime, I went downstairs, and there was a young woman who was about 5'7", who was wearing a black blazer, and I was wearing a black blazer, and wearing a red shirt, and I was wearing a red shirt, and black pants, and I was wearing, and we looked like bookends. And somehow we pulled off this presentation to a room full of people. She had never even been at Cedarfield before. So I guess it was just fate. It worked out well together, and everybody was impressed about what we were doing here, and equally as impressed with the architectural firm who worked to help design some of the things that you'll see in this presentation. So as most of you know, I'm very interactive. If you have questions along the way, don't save them for the end. Just either shout them out or raise your hand. But a lot of it will be very familiar to you. Is it? If we can't get this to work, I'll just tell jokes for the next hour. Yeah.
Who was the young woman dressed like your twin?
So she was an architect as well, and she had just joined the firm, but because they were so proud of the Cedarfield project, the wellness building, she was pretty well informed about it, even though she had never seen it. I'm going to stay as far away from it as I possibly can. And for most of you who know me know that I can't sit still, so I'm going to probably be walking back and forth throughout the presentation. So the overall objectives of our presentation was to, and I'm going to stand here so you can see, hear firsthand from a local provider about developing holistic wellness programs for communities, enhancing wellness, stimulating creativity, and appeal to senior adults and their families, to learn how to develop a wellness program parallel with the design that strengthens the relationship between building and people with real-world results and outcomes from the current users. And lastly, to discover unique industry programs currently available to transform buildings, promoting stronger, healthier lives. So what will be different? And I love this slide because it talks a little bit about the history. And most of you who know me know that this is my 20th year with Pinnacle Living. And when I started, my title was Director of Wellness. And wellness was really important to me. Being healthy, staying involved, being active, keeping our minds stimulated was something I knew was very important for people, not even if you were seniors, but in general, being stimulated and learning and growing and nurturing mind, body, and spirit. In about 2014, I met with the Pinnacle Living leadership team, as well as the leadership team here at Cedarfield, and we started talking about our plans for the future. And the first time we sat around the table, we talked about two main things. The dining program and how dining was really important for marketing, and healthcare, and how we really needed to focus on doing something different in our healthcare center. And I agreed with those two wholeheartedly. But I also felt that people in 2014 and 2012 and 2020 would be focusing less on how they would be cared for when they were sick and in a healthcare center, but what they needed to do to stay healthy and involved and in charge of their lives until they got to that step. So I remember sitting across the table from a group of our leadership team, and I said, I think we're missing the boat here. I think we really need to focus on wellness and not necessarily solely on how to take care of people when they're sick. I think that's really important. I'm a licensed nursing home administrator. I know that that's important. But if we could change the focus a little bit on keeping people healthy and active and staying well longer, I think we'll have happier residents. And for some reason, fortunately for me, that was my lucky day, the light bulb went off for everybody in that room. And they said, how are we going to do that? And over the next year, with help of a dynamic team, and most of you knew a lot of the people on the team back then, and some of the residents in this room, Tom was involved, started talking about programmatic approaches to keeping people well if we didn't necessarily have this big, beautiful building in the middle of our courtyard. And we started making little changes and tracking the number of people who were attending programs, satisfaction surveys, and what we found pretty quickly was people embraced the idea of being in control of their lives, giving input to the way their lives were lived, and also staying healthy. And fortunately for us, all of those things added up to me being able to convince our corporate office that another component to our expansion needed to focus on wellness. And that's how we got the wellness building. What we also learned during that year of gathering information is that experiences were really more important than things to people. I think about downsizing a lot when I think about this slide. And I think about my parents moving from the home that I grew up in to their, what I call their retirement home, which was much smaller. And my mother saying, don't you want this? This was in your bedroom, right? You got this at the prom when you were 16 years old. And what I realized early on, and I realized in working with seniors, is it's not necessarily the memento or the thing, but it's what the thing represents, right? It's the experience behind the item. And what we have found with residents over the last 5 years at least, is that being involved in something and having the experience is more important than the item themselves. And we wanted to build a program that allowed people to experience new things and meet new people and think and learn in different ways. And I think for the most part, that's what Pathways to Wellness has provided. I think most of you who have been in the building recognize that. That's the beautiful mobile that's in the middle of the stairwell. So the next generation of seniors want personalized and customized living experiences. And when I talk about senior living and I talk about my experience, and I started back in the early 90s, I remember in dining per se and in recreation, we as professionals figured we had it all figured out, right? Everyone likes bingo on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, and everyone likes to eat quiche on Tuesdays. And that's how we planned life in a senior living community back then. We as a staff, we as the leadership, knew exactly what everyone wanted and planned a calendar and gave it to you and said, bingo is that Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and focus group is on Monday night. Is it still on Monday night? Monday night at 7 o'clock, and you'll have baked chicken on Fridays, and you'll have fried chicken on Sundays, and you'll like that because you moved in here for us to take care of you. And what I soon realized is that many people did move in for us to take care of them, but that choice and input and being involved in paving your own path for the rest of your life was really important too. So we changed our mindset a little bit and said, input from person served, programs that are resident driven are more important to make people happy than just assuming that we know what people want. And that's clearly what Pathways to Wellness has done. So a survey was done actually by an outside firm, and I love this because it really shows that we were right on target back in 2014, 15, 16 when we started planning. So out of 100%, we asked seniors, this national organization asked seniors what they wanted from their retirement community. And 86% surveyed said they wanted a wellness spa experience, including an exercise pool, scheduled and on-demand fitness, aerobics, and other type of physical activities. So 86% said that that was really important to them. 84% said a diverse and different dining experience within the community, including formal, bistro, casual dining, and a bar and a pub. So far we've checked both of those two off. The next one was, they wanted, 82% said it was important for them to have socially dynamic experiences and amenities in spaces such as a cultural arts room, an arts and crafts room, a library, social media, with an opportunity to learn, work, volunteer, help others, and enjoy a strong sense of community. 75% said it was really important to them to have individual residences or apartments that connected by enclosed hallways or walkways and have common access to outside amenities. And lastly, 67% said residences such as cottages or villas that are independent from a main building but provided an opportunity for privacy was important to them. So if you look at that list, we really checked all of those off with the community here, and that was reassuring after we had already put our plan in place. And change is always important, and that's one thing we could count on. And what I love about Pathways to Wellness is that it's ever evolving and ever changing, and we have the possibilities to make changes from day to day, from week to week. We do that all the time with this program. And I think it was built to be able to do that. Okay, so where we are today and where we were. So many of you recognize the Informer. This is on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side, a copy of the Informer from 2022. The original Informer looked more like the one on the left-hand side from 2014. When I helped implement the program, we had 9 different dimensions of wellness. I called them at first elements of well-being, and they all look pretty much the same as they do now, except that over the last few years, you added a new one called cultivate. And I'll share later in the presentation, we have just started to implement Pathways to Wellness at Hermitage Richmond, and about the interest in cultivate specifically, which was really, it was amazing to me how many residents really were excited about that possibility. So since the inception, we saw within a year many changes once the program started. Each event in the Informer was matched with 1 to 2 pathway icons. That was the goal. For an activity to reach the needs of residents, it couldn't necessarily only fall under one domain of wellness. It needed to be able to meet the guidelines for at least 2 of them. A more diverse range of programming that has been implemented over wellness, and many of them are resident-led. We added the 10th dimension in 2020, Cultivate, and the Wellness and Leisure Committee on the Residents Council now have 3 subcommittees. They have the activities and programs, they have an arts council, there's an exercise committee, and the original one, which is still there, which is the religious life committee. Each year, I think you're still doing an annual showcase, is that true? That we basically have different tables in this room, and residents and team members come and interact and learn all about all of the different opportunities here. That was something that has always been successful. We're actually having one at our community in April. So 1 year after inception, 2016, what we found through statistical analysis is that residents showed us that they really wanted to be involved in not only picking programs, but facilitating programs themselves. So the number of resident-run activities after 1 year increased by 60%. The number of in-house activities increased by 50%, and the number of trips and outings increased by 75%. We had a really good program before then, so you can imagine how much more was offered once we started this program. The other really great thing about the Pathways to Wellness program is the fact that residents can start their own clubs and programs. If you have a resident who moves in tomorrow and says that they're into, I don't know, Thai cooking, you can have a Thai cooking club. Right? If you have a resident who moves in tomorrow who says they like to crochet baby booties, you can have a baby booties club. And I think what you'll find over time is that when people move in with more diverse interests, you'll have people wanting to learn and grow and participating in those programs as well, just to learn more. These are just some that are offered here right now. So let's talk a little bit about creative expression. When I started working here in 2003, Noah, which many of you know, he's a server in the dining room, was 6 weeks old. Yeah, he was 6 weeks old when I signed my contract. They gave me 2 more weeks to stay home with him before I started. But I remember coming in and seeing the craft room, which was at the end of the hallway, and we had a craft instructor. And I sat down and I met with her and I said, well, what do you love to do? And she said, well, I love to do everything. I said, do you knit? Do you crochet? She says, I knit, I crochet, I paint, I do sculpture, I do pottery, I do all of those things. And I said to her, well, which one is your favorite? And she said, I like them all. I said, well, which one are you really good at? And she said, none of them. So it was at that point that I started thinking that our art program, and we had a lot of artists in the building, and I know we still do now, needed more of a specialist program. And early on, one of the first things we changed was we started hiring artists from the outside to come in. And when I say artists, they were professionally trained artists in specific fields. So we had a watercolorist, We had an oil painting teacher. We had a pottery teacher. And what we found was when we started to make those changes, participation went up, and not only participation in classes, but every time I walked by that space, I saw people like Judy Johnson working on her own, right? Sue was always there working on her own because they had the opportunity to learn and grow and learn things new. And really, that's the whole point of Pathways to Wellness, to learn and give you opportunities to try things new and grow either lifelong passions or new hobbies and ideas. So some of the new classes that were added early on in the program were glass fusing, stained glass, watercolor, oil painting, jewelry making. I think we did an art history class. All those different things were new to us here at Cedarfield because we simply moved in the direction of not how we did it all along, right? Things needed to change, and this was one of the first steps we took. The same thing happened with strength and endurance. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 o'clock, 10:15, and 11 o'clock, if you walked into this room, the wooden floor was in the back, there was a stage in the back, and we had 3 types of exercise classes. And nobody complained because they thought those were good offerings until we started talking to people and learning that they like to walk, they like to ride bikes, they like to swim, they like to row, they like to do all different things that we didn't consider in our program because we thought we knew what everyone wanted and we didn't ask. Is the Romeo program still going on? The men's, that's amazing. So men's fitness class, aquatic Zumba, exerstriding, which are the walking sticks that you use. And those change as fads change, and people say, you know what, I saw somebody in the park using this type of technique. Can we try that here? So again, continually evolving. And here's our first testimonial, and my fingers are crossed that it works. Hold on. Oh, come on, this is the best part of the presentation. So my screen changed a little bit, and yeah, just play.
We just couldn't be happier with our life here at Cedarfield, and part of the reason for that, I think, is hi, I'm Tom Maxwell. My wife and I moved here to Cedarfield in 2013, and we just couldn't be happier with our life here at Cedarfield. And part of the reason for that, I think, is all the programs that we have here at Cedarfield. I tell my friends that we're not in a nursing home, but we're in a facility where we have to make choices on the program that we're going to attend for that particular day, or how many different programs we're going to participate in for that particular day. And it has just made such a difference in our lives. I think that the fact that we have something to do, if we hadn't been here, we would be home. I'd be cutting the grass or just not doing very much at all. But this way, we've been able to learn, participate in exercise. And my wife had never done exercise before. Now she's exercising every day. She's also participating in glass class, and clay class, and all kinds of other art expression classes that are being offered. And we just wouldn't have had that had we not moved here and had we not had the Pathways to Wellness program. I was fortunate to be able to follow that all the way through design, and then when we started it up, I was fortunate enough to cut the ribbon to open up this new building with Amy and Michael and others. It was just one of the highlights of my life, really, to be able to open up this new building with all these new programs that we have. And honestly, it has made such a difference in everybody's life.
Not quite sure why that cut off. But the highlight for this whole presentation, I'll say that before I move on, was hearing the testimonials of residents, and I'll share with you why. Because when I sat in a room with probably, 150 colleagues, everyone could close their eyes and go back to their community and picture their own Tom Maxwell, who, if they talked to and said, "Why did you move here?" he said, "Because I didn't want to mow the grass anymore," right? Or, "I wanted to be stimulated, and I knew that being at home in my rancher in the West End or in South Side wasn't going to be able to bring my life as much fulfillment as it was if I moved to a community like Cedarfield or another community." So it was interesting watching the audience watch the videos, and everyone was going like this because they knew that in their community they had a Tom Maxwell, or later you'll see a Judy Johnson, and people were doing the same thing. Okay, now to get back to my slides, I think I'm good.
Hi, I'm Tom Maxwell.
We can hear Tom talk again.
My wife and I moved here to Cedarfield in 2013, and we did.
There we go. Thank you. So these are just some pictures that actually Florence provided me with of some of the great things that Pathways has to offer. The Gardening Angels group. Anybody in here from the Gardening Angels program? Any interest in coming to Hermitage Richmond and helping us with our gardens? We had a meeting about that yesterday. We need some guidance. And I said, you know what? We have a great resource in our sister community. So I might be getting in touch with some of you later. Air and Space Museum, Civil War Museum, Bedford for D-Day, Virginia Living Museum, and the Christmas tree is in the way here, so I can't even see what the writing is on the bottom. But we live active lifestyles at Cedarfield. These are all places that we didn't, again, say, wake up one day and say, okay, on Tuesday, June 15th, we're going to the Air and Space Museum. We spoke to residents and said, where do you want to go? What was something interesting that you think other people would like to see? And that's how we started thinking with this program. Here's some more. Richmond Metro Zoo, the garden tour. I think that started about 2 years before I left Cedarfield, and that was one of my favorite events, being able to go and see our cottage residents' gardens. Tangier Island, the National Cathedral, the recycling plant. That was fun, I'm sure. We talked about recycling here for probably 3 years before we were able to kick it off. And we talk about history, and many of you who have been here long enough know that the original recycling program here at Cedarfield was started by my daughter's Girl Scout troop. And every Sunday, the dads and the girls went door to door and picked up everybody's recycling, and that's how they spent their Sunday afternoons. So I heard from David Stewart that you're still recycling, and you're going to be doing some even more recycling and dining, so that's exciting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the idea and construction and where we were before construction. So this was an overview of the campus before construction happened. It looks a lot different now. If you looked out this window, you would see a courtyard with a fountain in the middle. And the fountain really was the focal point of the courtyard, but no one was ever in that courtyard. There was no activities taking place in the courtyard except for once a year when we did an outdoor shuffleboard and putting green event. But there was no life in that middle courtyard, but it was sacred space because it was green, and we don't have that much green space here. So we talked for months about placement of the Pathways to Wellness building and where the best place would be for it. And we ultimately, as you well know, decided in the middle of the courtyard. But we had to deal with some other things. We needed to deal with the wetlands in the back of the property. We knew that everyone loved driving into Cedarfield and seeing that circle of green space in front of the building. We knew that we couldn't afford to move dining in construction from the 4th floor anyplace else in the building because we had so much invested in equipment in that kitchen. So we had to work with what we had, and ultimately we ended up putting the building in the middle of the courtyard, which I think was actually, even before and now after too, the right decision for us. Here's what it looks like from overhead now. So as part of the original expansion plan, we decided this would be a long process, and the process is actually still going on because it's not 100% completed yet. But the decision was made that the first thing that would be renovated would be the dining room, and that went pretty smoothly. Then would be the construction of the wellness center. Then rehab and healthcare, and then establishing new households just by moving people around. And I know that we've also done some stuff with the memory garden, and also, of course, a new independent living building. We did not go with the future deck, the parking deck. We had a lot of debate about that. Do you all remember that, the parking deck discussions? Okay, so there we are with the Pathways to Wellness building in the middle. I'm going to talk a little bit about that process. So I remember gathering with a group of about 50 or 60 people in this room, and it was team members, it was residents, it was board members, it was construction people, it was architects, and we did something that was called a charrette. And what the charrette allowed us to do was to dream big. And I remember saying to everyone who was there, we need to just dream big. If we don't have it on paper, they'll never consider us doing it. And after about, 3 hours in the room, we had probably, 50 big pieces of sticky note paper with ideas of what we wanted in that wellness building. So early thoughts were the chapel would be in the wellness building. We'd have a bowling alley in the wellness building. There would be a movie theater in the building. And after probably a couple of days of sitting and thinking about all those things that sounded absolutely wonderful to me, I realized that the wellness building would be bigger than probably half of Cedarfield with everything we wanted in it. So as any other construction project goes, we started having to delete some of the items on our wish list and making it feasible to not only fit in the middle of the courtyard, but be affordable to build as well. So these are some pictures of the courtyard before the construction, and actually these were on, I'm showing my age, they were on a floppy disk of pictures that I took early on at Cedarfield. But yeah, the fountain was really the focal point of the whole courtyard. Again, this is an artist rendering of what it looks like from the back side now, and an overhead site plan. That's the lower level with the pools. The side view, some renderings, well, actually photographs of what the inside looks like. Coffee station, gathering areas. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about strength and endurance and a healthy body and how important that is. We felt like strength and endurance was something that we've had interest in for a very long time. And I love the story of Tom Maxwell coming to Amy Chapman and saying, our little wellness center on the 2nd floor is not cutting it, Amy. And me saying, you're absolutely right. And us going out and looking at other fitness centers, places, and somehow coming up with some money and creating a fitness center that was bright and inviting and had probably about 10 pieces of equipment, looking at where we were then and looking at what your fitness center looks like now. It's pretty amazing the difference, but even early on, just some small steps made us have something that was more inviting and more enticing for residents to get involved in. Here's a photo of the pool. What was really important in designing the pool was outside light. And for me, lighting is everything. If I could have a house full of windows, I would be really happy. To many of our residents who swam, the lighting in the pool was just as important as everything else. And I think our architects did a really good job of creating a space that's well lit, and the feeling of when you're even swimming in the pool of being able to see outside and experiencing nature. Some of the features that the architect wanted to incorporate were tiles of natural colors, natural products in the build as well. A lot of the stonework is from local stone, and I think it really enhances the space and the way it looks. I believe that's Carol and that's Georgia. I'm not 100% sure. But again, in building even the fitness room, we wanted the ability to bring nature in and allow residents to go outside and experience nature. So we thought that, eventually, and I don't know if you're doing any outside classes now, we'd be able to move some exercise classes outside to the patio or in the green space in the courtyard. Again, windows and lighting here are very important. Okay, we have a quick testimonial from Georgia now.
Hi, my name is Georgia Brown. I'm the lifestyle coordinator here at Cedar Field, and I started out in fitness in 2004. With Pathways to Wellness, I've seen that as we plan our calendar, we get a lot of input. We meet with our residents to plan the calendar. We get input from the residents. And in some cases, we do resident-run activities for them where we get their ideas, what they would like to do, and then we will give them the supplies, the time, the room, and they just take off and do what they're interested in. So I have seen and found that the residents are a lot happier about having control and independence and input for our programs.
Great. So creative expression is next, and I love creative expression because I think when we talk about creative expression, we naturally go to art, right? Painting and sculpture and things like that. But creative expression could actually be other things like music and dance and drama. And all of those things are things that are incorporated into the Pathways to Wellness program. But when I talked earlier about starting here at Cedar Field in our craft room, I think for me, visibly, there's the most going on in that arts and crafts room, in our creative space there. Because not only are there great classes that are offered, but we have artists that are motivated to do things on their own as well. And I know that in the past year or so, whenever I'm here visiting and touring, there's always someone working in that art space, that art studio. And this is Fiona, and I know she's no longer here, but I think she was a value to the presentation.
Hi, I'm Fiona Ross. I'm the Creative Arts Specialist here at Cedar Field, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the domain of Pathways to Wellness that encompasses creative expression. And creative expression, for me, encompasses all of the arts. It encompasses fine art and craft, as well as performance, music, dance, but here at Cedarfield, we concentrate in the Creative Expression Studio mostly on fine art and craft. And students have a variety of ongoing classes that are available to them. We have ongoing classes in clay, in which we do hand building as well as bisque painting. We have beginning and intermediate fused glass. We have beginning and intermediate watercolor classes, starting with step-by-step instruction, drops of water, put this paint on top of this paint and blend, all the way up to intermediate and advanced students. We also have an oil painting and pastel class that is for all levels, and we have incorporated a demonstration module into that class as well, where students are coming that are not even in the class, so residents are stopping by to see the progress on this painting every week and coming to the class simply to observe and enjoy the community of that painting class. We also have a masterpiece movie series, so residents who are interested in art history, who might not necessarily want to come in and make art, but they definitely want to learn about art and want to learn about art history, who the artists were, what the times were like when they lived, what they made, anecdotal information about their lives. We've had a Toast to Art series where we make delicious meals based on the colors and textures that we see in paintings, and we've done that in conjunction with Karen Wilder, who is the dietitian here at Cedarfield.
So that's really unique, right? Looking at artists' paintings and then having a meal based on the colors and the textures and things that are portrayed in that art. That's really innovative thinking. And I promise you that in most retirement communities, our art specialists aren't coupling paintings with food textures. So that's really something out of the ordinary and special. The gallery space is wonderful and it's well utilized. I haven't been down there recently, but I'm assuming that it's still resident art exhibits that go up there on a regular basis. Intellectual growth has always been important as well. We know that stimulating the mind and learning new helps us in aging, trying things new, languages. We had early on a French club here that was led by a resident who lived in assisted living. We also had a sign language club early on because we have a lot of team members who communicate through sign language, and residents participated in that. Some more pictures of the inside of the building, and you can tell these pictures were there so that the architect in the presentation could talk a little bit about that. So this is the hub. And I remember in our charrette talking with the architect and talking with Chris Henderson and saying when I picture that building in the middle of the courtyard, it being the hub of all activity. And when I learned that the informal name of that gathering area is the hub, I got really excited because I knew what I thought of stuck a little bit. And from what I understand, people gather here informally throughout the day, which is really nice. Spirituality is a major component of the program. Spirituality and our religious life department was an easy move into this program because it had been here for a very long time. And for those of you who have been here as long as I've been here, our program in spirituality grew tremendously when Florence Brooks came on board. It used to be a Sunday service, and at Christmas time we had a candle lighting service, but now creativity is really woven into our spirituality department and religious life, and I think that's really impressive. The architect at this point talked a lot about the connections with the outside and natural light. And I think the building not only is functional, but it's beautiful. I love walking through the building and feeling the sun and seeing the natural features in the courtyard. I think it works really well. Emotional balance, we continue to offer support groups, there's yoga. I don't know that you have that much pet therapy anymore. I know a lot of people who offer pet therapy are a little reluctant to come in because of COVID. Do we still have pet therapy? Yeah, good, good. So some of you who know me and have spoken to know, we got a dog for Christmas this year. That would not be the dog you would want here doing pet therapy, I promise you. He's a gentle giant, but he knocks things over pretty quickly and regularly. Here's a view of the outside space and the garden area. Again, the rendering before the building was done of what they thought it would look like. So community outreach is another one of the dimensions of wellness, or one of the pathways. And what I found early on is that many people who live at Cedarfield were active volunteers in their community, whether it was organizations that help people in need, whether it was school organizations, trade organizations. That was something that was really important to them prior to moving in. And many were involved in that opportunity as individuals once they moved in. They would go read at Gayton School, or they would go volunteer at the Red Cross. Part of the program and the community outreach helps people volunteer and be involved in the community and continue their volunteer efforts as a group. And I think that's still going on as well, which is great. Allison is next.
I'm Allison Zach, and I'm the Director of Philanthropy at Cedarfield. I've been involved with Pathways to Wellness through community outreach, which is engaging residents both outside of the community volunteering and also inside the community helping each other. During COVID, we had a variety of different challenges getting people engaged in volunteerism. Obviously, a lot of places did not want our external volunteers, so we were able to pivot, and we decided that it would be best to bring projects here inside the four walls of Cedarfield. So we assembled a variety of different kits helping out different nonprofits, whether it was snack kits or game kits, kits for victims of hurricanes. We also used technology to engage our residents in the greater community. We had the volunteer director from the Ronald McDonald House talk to us via Zoom and explain a little bit about how the packets that they were using were going to be used and how they've had challenges working through COVID, delivering their services. During the pandemic, we had to pivot a little bit towards using technology. We had several residents who were very interested in helping with the school, but the school was virtual and there was no need for volunteers in the classroom. So they decided that they would work with the school librarian, identify a variety of different books, and our residents read those books on video, and then were able to upload those so the kids could use them from home while they were studying, hear the friendly voices read the stories, and be able to do their homework that way.
So creativity really came to play during COVID because we wanted to continue to offer all of the things that had been developed at the early onset of the program and make sure that it didn't go away during COVID. So the team here worked really well to do a lot of things virtually, volunteering virtually, exercise classes. I know we did a lot of those on the in-house TV station and other programs as well. We at Hermitage Richmond had whole bingo. So everybody sat on a chair in their doorway, and we walked through the hallways and said, B17, B17, and everyone had a bell. And if you won bingo, you rang your bell, and we came and we gave them the prize. So we've had to start thinking creatively during COVID, and I know that the folks here did a great job with that too. Diet and nutrition, we all love to eat. We all like to eat things that are bad for us, but we all know how important it is to eat healthy as well. That's why we feel like it's important to include diet and nutrition as part of the program. The architects in this presentation talked a lot about food to table. So that means growing food and serving it in the dining room. I don't think this program is quite at that point. We're not raising chickens. I don't think we have any desire to do that, but again, there are other communities that are doing that and providing food for their communities that way. There's a familiar face in the middle. Social connections, a majority of our programs could come under social connections. And for you folks, being together and being social is really important. I used to be called the party queen because we had so many parties here, and after time and more programs were evolving, we decided that, yeah, social connections are really important, but there are other ways to connect socially and not necessarily have a band in the room or drinks. I talked a little bit about the hub. There's some more pictures of the pool, and here's Judy Johnson.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, I'm Judy Johnson, and I've lived in Cedarfield, will be 9 years in August. It fell my lot to be in charge of the Christmas party, which was not a party because nobody could get together. But we came up with innovative ways to let the team members know that they were loved, even though we couldn't feed them and love on them like we usually do every year. But we came up with other ways. They each got a personal note written by somebody, and they got a little gift, which was probably not that great a gift, but the thought was there. And we decided that, somebody decided that we have such a good time when we get together with the staff, that now we do it almost quarterly or monthly. One of our parties, we include the staff. We always have a really good time, and they're like friends. I have a couple of them on my cell phone. They call me, I call them. And we interact really well, and it's like a family. And we have 10 domains in this Pathways to Wellness to reach people on all different levels and all different interests and abilities. And we discovered that we have interests and abilities we didn't know we had.
So Judy talked a little bit about the pathways and also connections with team members. The future for Pathways to Wellness will involve a Pathways to Wellness program for team members, and that's called Wellness at Work. And that I started to develop when I was here just a few years ago, and it was put on hold to its full extent during COVID, but that's our next phase of the Pathways program. Here's some pictures of the celebration outside in the courtyard. I'll talk briefly about brain fitness, and I think there might be another video about it. There is. And Dr. Branson, as everyone knows, was a wellness physician and feels strongly about stimulating the mind, and our program helps residents do that as well.
Activity has been shown to increase body and mind health. It used to be known that, it used to be thought that the brain cells just sort of withered away and could not regenerate. We now know that that's not correct, that there are food substances and exercise benefits and activities that cause brain cells to regenerate and to actually grow, so that the brain maintains a good activity. We've talked about the arts and crafts, anything that stimulates the productive behavior to produce something has been shown to be better than just games. So the games, the word games, the socialization, and all these different things that we do as group activities are beneficial. The most benefit comes from an activity where something is produced. And the arts and crafts, wood shops, knitting, anything of that type of activity has been shown to be better than just idle activity.
Cultivate is the newest domain of wellness. It was actually brought to me by the residents of Cedarfield after they decided that it would be a great addition to the program, and I think it has definitely proved to be that. I'm going to kind of whiz through this a little bit because I'm looking at my watch, and I know that sitting in these fellowship hall chairs for more than about 15 minutes is not good for anybody. So we'll just go to Jan Steele, and then I'll wrap up.
I'm Jan Steele. I've lived at Cedarfield since 2017. I am the cheerleader for Cultivate, the 10th dimension of the Pathways to Wellness here. To put it shortly, my role here is to get people to go outside and look outside to see what is available for them outside of the building here. People have a tendency to stay inside, and the whole point of Cultivate is to change that perspective. Under the Cultivate umbrella, or the tree, I guess, is gardening and practicing stewardship of the land, helping people develop new skills and find out maybe what their passions are, teaching them things so they can recognize a bird when they see it outside, and helping people make friends, like with the resident garden beds that we have. There is a group of people who see each other almost every day out there, and that's a way to meet new people, and other residents come through the gardens and talk to people who are working out there, and that's just one example of the kinds of things we do. We have
So here are just some pictures of the outside garden space. Everybody hopefully is familiar with your Touchdown program that allows you to see what's going on at different times of the day and throughout the month. What the architects talked about is now architects are thinking about domains of wellness in building, and they have their own components. So at this point of the presentation, the architects went over some of those things. And I'll just let you look at that slide for a minute. He talked about how in designing our building, he felt it was really important to bring natural textures in from the outside. You can see some things from nature and how it translates to building products there. Talked a little bit more about farm to table, designing things and bringing nature inside. And we will end there. I think one thing I'll say that makes us different than other communities, because many communities have similar programs and have developed those over the years. What makes this program different and most successful in my mind is a collaboration between residents and team members working together as advisors and consultants in creating the program. And I think that's what's going to actually keep it going for a long time. And I thank you for participating in it and for bringing ideas to the team here and keeping it alive, because I think it's outstanding, and ultimately it will benefit you in the long run. Thank you all. I'll stick around for questions if you have some. I know, again, I'll say I've sat in these chairs for many, many years, and I know that they are not kind to your back. So feel free to get up and walk around, and I'll stick around in case you want to come up and talk about the program or anything else. Have a wonderful weekend.